I am begging to be proven that Bigfoot exists, and I know that some of you that are watching this feel the exact same way. So let's strap on in, put on some of our oversized comfies, and let's get ready to be proven about the alleged bear man's existence. I'm sure you're all aware about who or what Bigfoot is, but for those of you who have been living under that very comfortable rock, Bigfoot is the alleged Sasquatch, bipedal man who's been continuously spotted since the late 1800s within the United States, mainly by Northern American tribes and American newspapers. This big boy has been ranking up those supposed sightings, reaching up to around 23,000 encounters, and with our cameras and computers, dare I say, have become more technologically advanced, more physical recordings of this alleged beast have skyrocketed. The first ever video recording of this beast comes from 1967 and was created by Patterson Gimlin. It's a total of 59.5 seconds, but just enough time for people to make their own claims about this so-called solid evidence. The story goes down that two men, Patterson included, were riding their horses amongst a trail within Bluff Creek, California on October 20th. Patterson is that one friend who is obsessed with mythical creatures and fairy tales. I am that friend, and has had the passion of wanting to produce films and novels about them. Gimlin, who was tagging along for the ride, merely wanted to support his endeavors. Could you imagine Patterson pointing to a weird looking mushroom, claiming it's the work of fairies, and Gimlin is just in the back like, yeah! Of course, Patterson, whatever you say, man. However, around 1 p.m. that day, their horses started spazzing out from a strange scent, and then spotted the big man, or creature, himself just about 100 feet away. Patterson wasted no time to film this guy on his old-timey camera, giving us this wonderful footage we see today. I bet y'all $50 Patterson begged Gimlin to get into that costume. Oh gosh darn, do I really have to? Yes, you have to. Since then, many people have been throwing flack on the video. The west coast of the United States seems to be the breeding ground for these things, since apparently that's where all the juicy sightings have been popping up. Specifically in Pennsylvania, there have been reports coming from there since 1858 and have been labeled as wild man sightings. One person had reported, "A thing like a man, but hairy as a bear, has been seen by the people. It was very wild and strong. It was once seen in a pen, sucking the cows, and when discovered, it started as if about to fight, and then turned and fled, bounding like a deer." Okay. It walks upright and is supposed to be a wild man. Aside from the very funky footage from 1967, the very first evidence that started really making people question was in 1980, when a 17 and a 3/4 inch long foot was found in Jonestown, Pennsylvania. And this wasn't even found in the forest, but rather near someone's home. It appeared to be someone or something's right foot, with a total of 6 toes in our usual 5. The left foot, allegedly, was then found 8 feet away from the right. Talk about a large step. Somebody fight me on this, but I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that it was planted by someone who was inspired by the 1967 story and wanted to get a little bit of clout for themselves. Aside from all the, you know, not so great illicit things happening during those times, people are bored. We're jumping a bit back and forth here now, because we're gonna talk about the footprint that was found in 1951 on Mount friggin' Everest. The Yeti and Sasquatch were believed to be two different things, but people are also theorizing that they may actually be a part of the same family. This print was found by Eric Earl Shipton, who accidentally stumbled upon a large footprint that was 12 to 13 inches in length, at 19,000 feet above. Tom Bordillon, who photographed the footprints, said, "What it is, I don't know, but I'm quite clear that it is no animal known to live in the Himalayas, and that it is big." This one doesn't appear to have 6 toes though, like the other one, and I'm finding it weird with the placement of where it was on the snowbank, but I digress. Another thing to point out is that a similar incident 25 years prior happened when a photographer by the name of N.A. Tombatsi had a similar footprint experience. Coincidence? Mayhaps. Alright, now we're getting into some classic newspaper clippings on the alleged monster. This claim happens in 1982 by Paul Freeman, whose encounter has been scrutinized a lot more because he was apparently a cryptozoologist, which is the study of discovering animals that are mainly mythological. He supposedly found massive handprints and footprints in the woodland areas of America's Washington state. Because he didn't have a camera at the time, he instead opted out from making plaster casts of them. A lot of people are on the fence about it, but because of the apparent nuances, such as dermal ridges and skin whorls found on these casts, they are calling this hard proof evidence. Or, you know, he could have manipulated those when he got home. It wasn't until 1994 where he was going to go out there and get some darn video evidence, and he supposedly did. Not one, but 2 Bigfoots did he find out there. What a coincidence! I'ma just spitball here, but you're awfully calm for someone who supposedly caught 2 of these mythical creatures. It's always fun when skeptics and supposed fraud investigators get to experience things like this. I'm a huge skeptic, and not once have I yet to be proven with any of my mythological beloveds. Mick Green, who is also a former US Army and tank commander, claims he's never had a passion for the supernatural. That all changed apparently when he was camping out in a 50,000-acre landscape in the mid-2000s, when something had approached his tent. Mick Green mimicked the roar he heard when the supposed beast came for his sight, stating, "And that wasn't nearly as loud as it scared the devil out of me, as you can imagine." I don't know why I went southern. I mean, I get scared with sudden loud slams. I can't personally imagine getting scared by a large roar in the woods while I'm alone all by myself. 2 months later, he decided to investigate instead of going home for whatever reason. Mick claims he used US military skills to estimate the size of the monster based on the surroundings. I guess from the measurements comparing with the trees, it was 7.5 or 8 feet tall and striding with that ponderous arm swing. Biggest mistake of my life. Really not to start recording. Don't worry though, he went back a week later with a thermal camera instead, and baited the monster with a candy bar to snag his footage. Honestly, yeah, if you placed a Quest bar out there for me, phew, I'd fall for the same trick, honestly. Mike is determined to stay on this hill he built, not caring if anyone believes him, since he knows what he saw, and will continue to prove it till the day he passes. Let's roll on back to the Roaring 20s, and no, I'm sadly not talking about the speakeasies and parties people were doing after World War I. We're taking a dive into prospectors, who apparently came face to face with 4 of these big boys and barely survived to tell the tale. Fred, Gabe, John, Marion, and Marion's son Roy originally called this thing the Oregonian. They claim that 4 gorilla men had come out and surprised them, describing them with long black hair, and had to guess that each of them weighed around 400 pounds. They told the newspaper, their ears are about 4 inches long and stick straight up. They have 4 toes, short and stubby. Alright, so which is it? 4, 6, or 5 toes? Apparently, Beck had enough manpower to send one of them off a cliff, and the beasts allegedly didn't like that. They claim that their tent was targeted that night with rocks being thrown that fell through some of the tent's roof, even harming Beck, knocking him unconscious for almost 2 hours. They swore to never speak a word of this to anyone. But of course, someone squealed about it, and now it's part of Bigfoot's history. Authorities apparently found 14-inch footprints around the area, where the men claimed to have been targeted, but was still brushed off as nothing more than a prank. Especially for a prospector, I wouldn't blame you for also trying to gain some clout and maybe some cash from this. I'd do it. Heck yeah.
911, what are you reporting?
With someone or something crawling around out here.
What, person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man.
If you don't already believe in Bigfoot, with the footage I have today, I bet you will by the end of the video. So there was this ape-looking figure that is believed to be Bigfoot that was captured walking up a hillside over in the US. Fascinating footage taken by a woman by the name of Kelly. She took this while she was hiking through the Blue Mountains in Oregon with her daughter, and she published it on YouTube. Well, actually, Rocky Mountain Sasquatch published it. And a lot of folks, such as myself, can't believe their eyes. So this blurry but fascinating video was recorded at a remote campground, and once again you see this creature walking up a hillside. Now Kelly originally thought like, okay, maybe it's a human, so she took out her phone, she's like, okay, let's zoom in, because her daughter was skeptical. And what she saw when she zoomed in wasn't a human. You guessed it folks, it was Bigfoot! Now the guys over at Rocky Mountain Sasquatch, who are constantly on the hunt for more evidence that Bigfoot is out there, were impressed by the footage, and ditto for every enthusiast out there. We had a lot of fun comments in the comment section that we're gonna read out. There was Billverine765, love that username, who said the creature on the mountainside does appear to be injured, maybe carrying something. The pixelation from the zoom makes it impossible to tell for certain, and this is the reason our hairy cousins are the world champion hide and seek champions. Keep up the awesome work, which like, I never thought of it, but yeah, well I guess Bigfoot's tied with Nessie, but still, co-champions. White Tiger 5151 was like, whoa, great clip. I'm moving to Ashland, Oregon, buying ranches to turn them into food forest farm sites, and I have no doubt Bigfoot's gonna be living there. I could use some help in finding out where they are to keep my crew safely away from their territory. And like, that's a comment I love to see, where you're like, hey, I respect the big guys out there. How do we coexist nice and safely? That's how you're responsible with cryptids. Well, on the narrow train from Silverton to Durango, Shannon Parker was looking for elk with her partner Stetson Tyler, and they were like, something's not an elk. Now, Tyler said, I think it's Bigfoot. And there was another passenger sitting by the couple, only identified as Brandon, grabbed a phone and was like, yo, Bigfoot! So, we got a Facebook post. Parker shared the photos and Brandon's video of the elusive creature. And you can hear Tyler saying in the recording, I don't know about y'all, but we believe. And like, me too. Now, there was folks in the comments saying, yes, we believe. But then, of course, you got the negative Nancys, the doubters, if you will, saying like, I don't know. Look at the quality of this. Well, according to the witnesses, the creature was at least 6-7 feet tall, maybe taller, which like, she said that it matched the sage in the mountains so much that he was camouflaged when crouching down. So, and she even went as far as to say, if you had asked her before the trip, she said like, maybe Bigfoot's real. But after that, she was convinced. Now, some folks in the comment section were like, it's a hunter wearing camouflage. But Parker disagreed, saying there was no sign of a weapon, no sign of any kind of reason to be hunting. Even the train conductor told a couple of similar mysterious and unexplainable sightings. He said that apparently in the winter he'd gone out snowshoeing in those mountains and saw footprints that were much bigger stride than any snowshoes would have been. I'm just saying, folks, Bigfoots exist year-round in many different climates. It makes sense. Now, if we're gonna talk about maybe a viral moment, I did see one little TikTok when I was like scrolling through recently. I believe it was from the Paranormal Chic, which like, love that name. I agree. So the clip is captioned, Bigfoot is real. And the TikToker told her followers that she was posting the footage because, and I quote, she firmly believes it's one of the best recordings of what looks to be like a Bigfoot caught on camera. So she explained that it was filmed by a drone, which like, we love drone technology. This was from Vermont-based YouTuber Ken's Carpentry, which 2Ks love the alliteration, and they were looking for a mama bear and her cubs, and they noticed this unidentified creature. So the video we have shows the camera gliding over this snow-covered forest. Snow. And Ken's voice can be heard gasping, what in the world? What is that? And he goes on to gush like, that's incredible. A tall, furry figure can be seen walking through the trees. No way, are you serious? He zooms in on the creature, whose footsteps, by the way, can clearly be heard crunching through the snow. So the TikTok racked up thousands of views in less than 24 hours. And as always, you've got something to say, I got something to say. Let's see what folks had stuff to say. Somebody said, preach, he is real. I get such flack for believing, which like, me too. Somebody else said, I believe it, but have a drone drop it closer to the ground next time for a better angle, which like, okay, we get it. But hey, remember folks, there's been a lot of renewed interest in Bigfoot lately. I remember there were some authorities in New Mexico that had issued a Bigfoot warning to residents. Yeah, early last year, the county sheriff's office had a Facebook post saying like, hey, here's some do's and don'ts when you encounter Bigfoot. Saying, do not chase Bigfoot, do not yell at Bigfoot, do not feed Bigfoot, do take pictures. Which like, it sounds like we're going to a Bigfoot zoo. Like, okay, hop in everybody. Yeah, you can take all the photos you want. Don't feed the animals. Don't put your head through the cage. We all remember the Warner Brothers Zoo attraction, right? So described by some as the best footage ever recorded of the otherwise mythical creature, our next video clip from Josh Highcliffe has to be seen to be believed. So this went up on YouTube in October 2013, making it 11 years old now, and it's gone viral. It's had like 1.3 million views, so maybe it's not super obscure, but I don't think we talk about it enough. He labeled the video, I think I saw a skunk ape. Please help. He was looking for guidance from online folks, because apparently a skunk ape is also known as the Florida Bigfoot, which like anything that is Florida specific makes me a little afraid. So Josh revealed that the footage was taken approximately 9 miles west of Mississippi on his hunting property. He was out hunting dogs. He assumed it was an animal at first. He was like, oh yeah, big shoulders, big hands, big head. And then he bolted in horror, which makes sense. His first instinct was to run. He didn't even think of firing at it. And then he knew nobody was gonna believe him. He described the encounter on his video's page. He was in the swamp. It was about 6 p.m. He wasn't too far from the road. road. He was dressed in camo, he was sitting still on a tree, he was waiting for the sun to go down because, you know, hunting, camouflage, blending into the darkness, all those things. He heard a noise, and then he couldn't believe his own two eyes. And his first instinct was to get the heck out of there, because fight or flight, folks. Well, technically, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, but we don't have enough time to dive into that. Behind him was this creature that was crushed by a fallen tree that was about 50 yards away. And at first he thought it was a hog, like that's what he was looking for. But then when he saw the shoulders and the hands and the head, the creature was digging out a stump, he was like, okay. He described it as everything slowing down, and he was scared. He took out his iPhone, he was videotaping, and he guessed he pushed the record button twice because it stopped blinking red, but then he pushed it again. Look folks, we've all had that moment, okay? I'm really bad at taking videos. So he heard a truck driving down the road, and then the thing stood up. He was trying to be quiet, and then it stood up, and he couldn't help himself. He bolted, which like, natural response. He went on to explain that he guessed the size of the being to be about 7 feet tall, which hey, matches up with all of our other stories today. And although it's been a hot minute since he shared the sighting, people continue to comment on the video, saying, "This is best. This is credible. We like this." One person said, "Honestly, this is probably the best footage ever recorded. Amazing that it's not talked about more." Don't worry folks, that's what I'm here for. Somebody said in 2021, and this was all in caps, but we're not gonna yell, "The best video to date, and it's 8 years old. Congratulations, Josh, you've held the record for some time now." Somebody else said it looks so natural, like it's in its element. Somebody else mentioned like when you hear the crack of the wood when it rips it out, it sounds like it's got some real strength. Really, like it is one of the best Bigfoot videos we've ever seen. Somebody really said, like I think it's safe to say, this is one of the most real Bigfoot videos out there. It doesn't look like some guy in a suit ripping a tree apart. That's brute force. Ripping a tree is not easy. I didn't see any CGI in that, folks. I didn't see any fancy editing. I'm sorry, I don't think it's some wrestler doing a WWE bit. Somebody's ripping that apart, and I don't want to be around that strength. So Paul Freeman was this US Forest Service patrolman. He was also a very active cryptozoologist, and he spotted Bigfoot back in 1982. So if we're gonna condense everything and squish it all down, he spotted this Sasquatch near Walla Walla. And he knew his way around the woodlands at the time. He was seasoned at this stuff. And he spotted these massive hand and footprints around the Blue Mountains. But he didn't have a camera with him, so he took plaster casts of the prints instead. And yes, the prints and the casts have been the subject of much debate, but a lot of experts, including university experts, think it's the real deal. These casts contain imprints of dermal ridges, skin whorls, and those nuanced little details make it really unlikely that these are a forgery. He returned to the area in 1984 and essentially devoted the rest of his life looking for evidence of Bigfoot. He collected hair, photographs, a variety of casts of everything he could find. And he did get video footage. We have it today, and it's been hailed as some of the most credible footage, once again, of all time.
Spotted Bigfoot in Cleveland County, and this isn't the first time. The legend continues. One man in Kaiser says he encountered the mythic beast just last week.
Whether it's during the bright hours of the day or the grueling, terrifying hours of the dark night, Bigfoot is a force to be reckoned with. Despite reaching a maximum height of 15 feet, this terrifying, intelligent creature can camouflage just out of the corner of your eye and surprise you in the unlikeliest of places, while scientists continue to deny it from you. Who doesn't love a good ATV drive in the woods, especially with your pals? Enjoying the woodlands that surround you, taking in everything that Mother Nature has to offer, not to mention on a really sweet ride. However, no matter where you are in the world, it's always best to keep an eye on your surroundings, which, unfortunately, these two buddies didn't do, and may have almost cost them some serious injuries. The video starts off with these two pals joking about their lives, talking about girls they've met, you know, typical friend conversations. Being so engulfed in their topic, however, they completely miss the first red flag that they would encounter. A cleverly placed obstacle of a tree branch blocks their path as they delve further into the brush, but thinking nothing of it, and continuing on with their banters. The camera pans to the driver, who laughs at one of their jokes, when suddenly we see a large, dark figure run alongside their ATV, trying its best to catch up with them. These two are oblivious though, and mayhaps have just thankfully missed a very serious situation that may have cut their fun adventure to a bitter, short end. I find the woods to be a wonderful place to go hiking with your partner, but after this video, I'm definitely second-guessing my choices. Two hikers innocently were enjoying their day until they came upon a specific path that looked looked rather worn down by something that wasn't man-made. They point to what appears to be large steps that were taken, as well as oddly placed stacked rocks far off in the distance. The couple proceed to let their curiosity take the better of them, and eventually decide on having a spirit box session to see if there is anything abnormal happening around them. Just then, they finally see off in the distance what was probably the cause of the strange formations from early on, describing the figure to alternate between sitting and standing, and even noticing its head and eyes. And then, the spirit box even corrects them by saying it only has one eye. The two of them proceed to then continue on with the spirit box to find out more information about whoever or whatever was out there with them. The next video I'm about to show you starts off as sweet and innocent. A simple father enjoying some quality time with his child in the backyard, playing alongside him with his new toy car. Just then, we hear a bellowing growl from the woods just across from them. Thankfully, the child doesn't seem to notice or become scared, but the father jumps at the opportunity to quickly get the both of them inside. As the camera pans towards the sound, we see the large dark figure quickly jump away from sight, the leaves and branches crunching heavily beneath its feet as it lets out another intense growl. The video ends abruptly, leaving us with even more questions as to what could have happened next. It's bad enough stumbling upon one Bigfoot, but what are the odds you accidentally run into multiple? That's exactly what happens to these two hikers here in Mark Twain National Forest, quickly pulling out their camera to explain what had just happened to them. First, they go on to explain what they had heard the first time was just the sound of doves and thought nothing of it until they got closer to a lake. A disgusting smell overtook them, inviting them closer to get to see what could be making such an awful stench. Just as they got there, they notice a herd of large gray creatures run off back into the woods, creating that same dove-like sound. The sound even proceeded to go as far as follow them as they tried to head back to a familiar area, leaving them questioning what it was that they saw and what were those strange sounds the creatures were making. They tried to rationalize it with hogs and other animals, but none of those made enough sense. Whatever they are, they were loud, and watching them too. You'd think come winter, Bigfoot would also be hibernating as well, right? Well, apparently not. What appears to be a group of family members trying to enjoy their skiing trip seem to be distracted by something on top of a hill near the lodge. You can see them as they walk around confused, looking upwards at the hill trying to make out what they're actually witnessing in those tall, dark pines. Then we finally see it, almost perfectly camouflaged against the brown bark from above. Interestingly enough, Bigfoot himself looks like just as curious towards the onlookers, making me question if this specific Sasquatch has ever come this close before to other people. He stands there for a moment to observe before making its way back into the forest. If he ever were to come back, let's hope it's not to get any closer. To catch this Bigfoot in such an open space is terrifying, and thankfully these tourists were far enough away not to be face to face with the creature itself. Throughout the video, we hear people clicking their cameras and watching in awe as the Sasquatch walks around the plains before taking a comfortable seat down in the dirt, almost as if it's waiting to pose for the camera itself. As if being in a zoo, it's much more comfortable seeing this creature at such a far distance, since we have no idea how they would react to people. Even seeing it from this far, it appears much larger than the average person. It's even interesting to see how well the Bigfoot blends into its surroundings, almost appearing invisible as its fur matches the bushes around it. Maybe you wouldn't have even noticed it yourself from simply walking by it. It's easier to not be as terrified of the woods, and maybe even Bigfoot when it's still bright enough outside to see everything. But what about in the dead of night? In this video, a group of expeditioners purposely go out into the woods at night to catch their Bigfoot. What may have started out as unlucky findings turns out to be one of the scariest things to encounter on a thermal reader. Maria, the woman in the video, is absolutely flabbergasted by what she catches on the reader, explaining that she can even see it being reflected off the water and it growing larger as it adjusts itself. Her co-star Ronnie, the other man in the video, attempts to keep his voice low as he tries to contact her, but to no avail. Her attention is too focused on the large creature, giving off intense heat signals right in front of her. Whatever it may be, a bear or a deer, the readings indicate that it's something large and to be cautious of. Would you be brave enough to chase down a 15-foot creature? Because that's exactly what this person did after seeing a large, bear-like monster run across a road on 2 feet. He proceeds to yell to someone off camera to get back inside the house, as he proceeds to hunt down the beast, tripping over branches and logs in the process. He follows the breaking of branches and any Bigfoot calls that he could hear, making sure he was right on its heels the entire time. He then eventually catches up to the large creature, staying far enough away as to not be noticed while he films his encounter. His labored breathing makes it all the more eerie, as it makes me want to hold my breath for him in hopes of not being noticed. He manages to film just a bit more until he turns off the camera for good, noticing that its calls were becoming more and more aggressive the longer he followed the creature for, a clear sign that any second longer could place him in serious danger. This next video comes to us from Indiana by Josh Banker. It's always a good idea to keep trail cameras up and running overnight for protection, whether it be from people exploring the woods or by wild creatures. And that's exactly what Josh here caught. The next morning after the incident occurred, Josh couldn't believe what he witnessed on his game camera, clearly showing a large, furry creature on 2 legs run across the screen. Josh was so terrified that he felt the need to start protecting himself whenever he left the house, especially after hearing from neighbors that they also reported screams at night. To add on, Josh and a couple of his family members also captured footage of the beast's large footprints in the mud, even snapping a comparison photo of his own next to the print. Whatever this thing was, it was twice the size of an average male footprint. Who knows what the actual height of this creature could be? Our last clip is probably the scariest of all. For the entirety of this video, the people in them were lucky enough to have their cameras at such a great enough distance from their Bigfoots, but not in this one. Here we see the Bigfoot in its full glory, and not in the best of moods. It aggressively snaps a large branch right in front of the tent, causing the material of the camper's home to shake under its brute force. Thankfully, the poster was nowhere near when this happened, having strapped their trail cam to a tree just to observe what could have happened overnight. And what they got was sure a surprise. The video is probably the best comparison in height we are able to capture, seeing as it straightens itself out and displays for us how ginormous this beast truly is right next to the tent. Bigfoot is not your typical Yogi Bear, especially if it's having a bad day such as this one. I'd stay clear from it if you know what's good for you.
This is the moment a TikToker spotted what they believe is Bigfoot. Describing it as the scariest moment of their life, the user filmed what appears to be a large figure sitting under a tree. Many people in the comments were convinced the encounter was 100% real. What do you think?
From unexplainable trail camera sightings to terrifying footage in the mountains, these rare Bigfoot sightings were never supposed to be seen. Up first is Jacob's sighting. The Jacobs photos are some of the most compelling images of a Sasquatch ever captured. Rick Jacobs, a hunter, was preparing for a deer hunt and set up a trail camera with scented bait to attract deer. But what he discovered was far more shocking and life-changing than any buck or doe. The first photo shows bear cubs drawn to the bait site, but the second reveals a strange primate-like creature, allegedly a juvenile Bigfoot. While some have suggested it could be a bear with mange, numerous detailed YouTube videos have debunked this theory through limb proportions, locomotion, and movement analysis, leading most experts to conclude that this is definitely not a bear. The third photo shows the juvenile Sasquatch sniffing the deer scent. The third photo shows the juvenile Sasquatch sniffing the scented deer bait, and its pose has become central to the mystery. If it were a bear, it would likely sniff the ground in a similar manner to a dog, with its torso parallel to the ground and a slight forward lean. Instead, the creature is moving in a way that more closely resembles primate behavior, hinging at the hips and extending its arms much like an ape would. This unique posture has been cited by many as some of the strongest evidence for the existence of Sasquatch. Next is the Mountain of Marble. Taken in June 2001 by youth group leader Jim Mills, the Marble Mountain footage has raised questions and sparked intrigue for years. Filmed in the far north of California, the footage first shows a group of youths gathered around a strange sort of shelter. The bases of the logs and sticks that make up the structure are not chopped or sawn as one would expect from human construction, but instead appear shattered, torn, and ripped apart. It's obvious that no human could have torn tree limbs off in such a manner, leading to the assumption that this shelter is in fact the home of a Sasquatch. The camera then follows a young man pointing up the mountain face, and when the camera pans and zooms, we catch a glimpse of what he's seen. A massive figure somewhere between 8 and 10 feet tall, trundling down the mountainside. This is allegedly the only such sighting recorded in the Marble Mountains, but for one of the most famous Sasquatch sightings in history, it seems odd that the location hasn't been the site of more encounters. Perhaps this population has since moved farther north, out of California and into the more densely forested areas of northern Oregon or Washington state, or perhaps they're simply stealthier than we thought. Next is the beast in the Banff. This is truly the most chilling and unsettling Bigfoot footage I personally have ever seen. Taken by hunters just north of Banff National Park during the winter, it reveals a truly unnerving sight. The hunters were searching for elk when one spotted a strange furry mass in the distance. Thinking it may be a harvestable elk or moose, they approached closer, only to discover that it was neither. In the trees around its nest were rib cages, spines, and other animal remains. It was clear that this was no bear though, as bears don't arrange or organize the remains of their prey in such a way. The hunters began recording this video, which, though they remain somewhat hidden by the trees, clearly shows an adult Sasquatch and its young. The footage is especially chilling when considering that the western forest populations of Sasquatch are known to be particularly carnivorous and aggressive. These hunters were dangerously close to meeting their end, but their skill and stealth ultimately is what kept them alive. Next is the Freeman footage. Recorded by Paul Freeman in 1994, this is some of the oldest and most compelling Bigfoot footage ever taken. For 3 decades now, it has sparked conversation and debate, and is considered by many to be one of the earliest and most convincing pieces of evidence ever recorded. The footage begins with Paul sneaking up a trail, hoping to catch a glimpse of the creature, before he quickly adjusts the camera and captures several precious seconds of footage. What makes this footage so significant is that it was among the first to show a Sasquatch actually moving, a crucial breakthrough for early investigators and theorists. While the footage isn't the clearest, it inspired a generation of Bigfoot researchers and remains a foundational piece of evidence in the ongoing search for Sasquatch. Next is the Catskills creature. This truly chilling footage was recorded in the Catskill Mountains by campers who had planned to spend over a week in the woods. While backpacking deep into the forest, carrying all their supplies with them, they had a terrifying encounter on the 3rd night. A strange smell began to permeate the camp, followed by rustling in the bushes. Fearing it might be a bear, they readied their bear spray, only to hear the snapping of twigs as the creature moved off. One hiker bravely or foolishly ventured out into the woods to investigate, initially seeing nothing. However, they just barely captured a glimpse of the creature watching them from a distance. Wisely, they kept watch throughout the night and then hiked out of the woods at first light. Given its quiet approach, it's very possible that this Sasquatch was actively hunting the hikers. They were smart enough to leave as quickly as they did, getting out of the woods as daylight crept over the horizon. Next, clinging to the dome. Clingman's Dome, the highest point in Tennessee, is also one of the most famous Bigfoot hotspots in the state. Sasquatch, with their thick fur, are typically found in the colder regions of the warmer states, which is why the Smoky Mountains, with their elevation and cooler temperatures, are a prime location for Sasquatch sightings. This footage is among the clearest and most convincing, recorded by a hiker who came upon a whole group of people peering through the forest and up the mountainside. The group initially thought that they had spotted some sort of bear, but one person insists that it was no bear, as it had been seen walking on 2 legs. The hiker then manages to capture a brief glimpse of the creature on camera, and many consider this to be a once-in-a-lifetime piece of footage. The dark brown, almost black color of the creature's fur farther suggests that this is likely a southern Sasquatch, as opposed to the more gray-coated Sasquatch typically seen in more northern regions. And finally, the Valley Terror. This footage is genuinely terrifying. It was recorded by a man who set out on a solo bushwhacking adventure, a popular activity for those seeking to emulate the archetype of the strong, independent loner who needs no help. However, this man is about to learn exactly why humans are not solitary creatures. He's blazing his own trail through the woods and has chosen to follow a gully with a thin stream at its base. If he's looking to get back to civilization, this is a decent plan, but what he doesn't notice is the creature silently following him just behind. What makes this footage so unnerving is that it's clear this is not a Sasquatch that wants to be seen or known. It isn't throwing rocks or bellowing, it simply follows, shockingly silent. This is a very bad sign for the hiker, and judging by the fact that his camera was found dropped in a creek just a few hundred yards away by other hikers days later, it's very possible that he didn't make it out alive.
What? What the heck is that thing?
Deep Under the Antarctic ice, researchers braved freezing temperatures to unlock the secrets of our planet's past. Well, guess what they found buried deep within this ancient ice? None other than Bigfoot himself, or at least something very close. This team of intrepid researchers had been drilling through layers of ice thousands of years old. They weren't expecting much more than some old bones or maybe a frozen fish or two, but then as their drills bit through the frost, they hit something solid and big and hairy. There it was, emerging from the ice like a creature out of legend, a towering, hairy humanoid unlike anything seen before in science. Bigfoot, or something eerily similar, was uncovered right there in Antarctica. This discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Suddenly, everyone had questions racing through their minds like snowflakes in a blizzard. How did this creature end up in Antarctic ice? Was it a relic from the last ice age, a survivor of Earth's coldest sanctuary? Or perhaps it's an even older species from before the ice age? Regardless of the answers, one thing was very clear: this was a discovery of monumental proportions. It wasn't just about Bigfoot being real, it was about rewriting the history books and reshaping our understanding of life on Earth. This discovery has set the scientific community on fire, sparking debates and speculation about what this creature could be. Is it a distant cousin of humans adapted to survive in Antarctica's harsh conditions during the last ice age? Or perhaps it's an entirely new lineage waiting to be classified and studied. As scientists huddled around this frozen enigma, carefully chipping away at the ice to reveal more clues about its identity, some very strange things were discovered. The creature had actually suffered injuries during its lifetime, things that could be potentially catastrophic, broken bones and infections, and yet these had all healed. Not only that, but the bones seemed to have been splinted in some sort of way to encourage it to re-knit properly. This shows that there was some degree of medical care. They examined its massive frame, its distinct features, and its long, powerful limbs, and identified that this may have been some sort of social ape, different from the Sasquatch that we see today. It was hypothesized there may have been an entire society of these apes long before the Ice Age, who used rudimentary medicine and tools to heal and support one another. But amidst the excitement and curiosity, there are still questions. How did this creature end up in Antarctica? Could there be more of its kind hidden in the ice waiting to be discovered? And what does its existence mean for our understanding of life on Earth and beyond? If this creature is social, then surely we should be able to find others of its kind, and possibly even more tools. As news spread like wildfire around the globe, theories abounded. Some suggested that this Antarctic Bigfoot could hold the key to unlocking mysteries of evolution and migration. Others pondered whether there might be more of these creatures hidden in the icy depths, waiting to be unearthed by the next brave explorer. But amidst the speculation and excitement, one fact remained undeniable. Antarctica had just revealed a secret that would forever change how we perceive our world. And as for our furry friend encased in ice, well, he became the star of the show, a silent sentinel from a time long past, waiting patiently for scientists to unravel his frozen tale. Researchers are currently in the process of analyzing and investigating this stunning new discovery, and are hoping it may just shed light on our past, as this may be some sort of long-lost relative of humanity. Do you think we should keep searching for frozen Bigfoot? Do you intend on doing any of your own research? Let us know below, and I'll see you next time.